What's going on, people? Look, welcome back to the area. Hey, look, we apologize. We know we missed y'all last month, man. Hey, look, we not gonna lie. We keep it honest over here. We had an off month. It is what it is. We was just all over the place. We tried to record the podcast, and you're about to meet our guest in a second. I know he's sitting here giving y'all some real cool faces right now, but we actually flopped. We recorded the podcast, and I didn't press record. Yeah. So anyways, welcome to the podcast, man. Welcome back to the area, man. We are so glad to have
you. Everyone makes mistakes.
We do, man.
We do.
Why make so many, though?
How many? You got the gauge. When you say so many.
Oh, let me show you.
I mean,
See,
have like
I recorded it in my phone.
Say some people make like 20. You might have made like 10. And you said so many.
Yeah, see right here? Yesterday, no, that's not real.
I was reading your stuff, man. I won't say what.
But look, today, man, we have with us Mr. Gregory Greer.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to let him run this down, man, because I really want y'all to know a little bit more about Greg Greer, who he is. Matter of fact, we used to be, I want to say co-workers, but actually, you were a supervisor to me, too.
I was supervisor. Sure.
Yeah, this is my old supervisor, man. Come on.
Think about it like that, but yeah, okay, yeah. I was supervisor. Yeah.
Yeah, you actually hired me, too. Yeah.
Did I really?
You did the hire.
Now
when we like came on with Willie.
Boss man.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel all important now. Okay.
You are important, Greg. Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean. We get a little over the top.
All good.
But we did.
Man.
We worked in addiction.
That's right. So, Greg, man, go ahead and tell the people, man. There's a lot of people watching. Some people may know who you are. Some people may not. So let them know who Gregory Greer is and what is your relation to the world of addictions, mental health, substance abuse, all this. Like, let us know what's going on.
Well, it's really interesting. I first started at Capillary Human Service District in 2008. I worked for the Children's Behavioral. I know, welcome back, right? So I worked for the Children's Behavioral Health Unit, and I worked with an intensive outpatient program with the Ryan's Juvenile Detention Center, and then with the mental health. So 2010, I started working with further addiction and residential level of care. So a social worker, got my MSW at LSU. I furthered my education by getting a license as an addictions counselor as well. And then I became a certified group psychotherapist with American Group Psychotherapy Association. So I'm a clinical member of AGPA, and I meet in New York with a series of about 1,000 or more other clinicians, psychologists, psychiatrists who work the practice of group psychotherapy. And then I practiced something called soul drama, which I told you about before, which is a group approach to further spirituality with our soul connection to our higher power and the deficit or the barrier with our ego, which we think what we think we know. And that's always the problem. So anyway, soul drama has been something that has developed recovery for me to a higher level. Anyway.
I'm saying, bro, that's a lot. That's a mouthful. So you caught all this from me?
Did I go too much?
You did. What did he say then?
Was that?
I heard AGP. I just know I'm down with OPP. But anyways, I'm just playing. All right. So no, all this is good. I caught it. So I want to move from here, man, because I want to get into the why. Like, you are who you are. Everything you just spilled out, and that's great. Why did you get into all this?
Oh, well, I'm in recovery too. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been to treatment a few times, actually. Well, that's 2002, 2006. I lived in Los Angeles for 12 years of my adult life, from like 21, 22. And so I saw radio, TV, film out there. I did stand-up comedy. I do a lot of impressions. Some of it's funny. Maybe that's why I work in the field of mental health now. So it's like, maybe it's not that funny. So it's so that was a facade of a human being seeking a validation and attention from other folks. So my alcohol and substance abuse became more important, so I didn't even really pursue that any further. So when I went back to school in 2003, that's when I started working as a social worker. And then I furthered more because group was my passion. I wanted to do it more. And then I I would use the entertainment, I guess, background that I had to try to engage a population in the recovery area because we're so distracted. And so I think a lot of us are so filled with fear, and we have all these defense mechanisms. If I use humor If I use humor,
Yeah.
it lets the boundaries, the walls
sir.
that we have come
Yes, sir.
down
Yeah.
so that I can be more receptive to
That's
listen
good. Yeah.
to what somebody has to say instead of being so defensive. And that's part of our ego. We're just amazingly defensive. And so once I use the humor to get that down, then we can be a little more intimate. And once we're intimate, wow, the connection, and to me, that's where spirituality really grows.
Yeah. I love the way you put that, man. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
thought about it in terms of relationship, but anyways, that's another.
So I got into the field because of my own. And, people who go into mental health or even in the field of addiction, there's two reasons they go into it. One is to either fix themselves, which work on me, or I'm trying to fix somebody else. And you'll hear that with other counselors all the time because that's a form of codependence. Codependence. So I had this part of my life, and I was an adult child of an alcoholic maybe, and so I'd want to help somebody else because of the relationship I had with mom or dad or even a sibling who was in their addiction. And so when I work with other clients, you'll hear some counselors say, I'm still working with my mom or my sibling when I work with that client. And that's called countertransference. But there's still, that's attachment that we have with it. And so that's the reason I got into it, was to fix me.
I understand.
I'm still working on fixing me, by the way.
Aren't we all, man?
Yeah, it's ongoing.
I'm a mess. I ain't gonna lie.
I saw that list on your phone just a minute ago. You showing it.
Bruh, so tell me this, Greg. What happened? Like, as far as, we know that you have a past of, addiction and whatnot, but to get to this place, like, talk about that transition. What was the breaking point? What led you to get to the point that, look, enough is enough? Like, what was that moment, or what was that season? What did that look like?
Wow, you asked a really deep question here.
All right, let's do it.
So personal. All right, well, I got into the field. My father's a neurosurgeon. He's also, before he became a neurosurgeon, he was in the Air Force, and his first degree was in engineering, and he developed the airbag for the Air Force, which means he doesn't have the patent. GM financed it. And so with that, he's also a doctor on the ground for the 9th mission to the moon. So all these accolades, my father's a very busy man. And so think about, as a son, you're trying to, meet the approval of said accomplished individual, and I'll never fill those kind of shoes or build a bigger pair. As far as, I'm not going to be a neurosurgeon, I'm definitely not going to build a rocket to go to the moon, and I'm not developing the airbag or anything of that. But what can I do? I like to help another human being be able to identify further, I'd say, deficits, problems, challenges with themselves that can help somebody else. And who knows how amazingly awesome that person might be. And so I don't know, there's a connection. I was starving for nurturance growing up because my father was an amazingly busy man, and this is my interpretation, that I sought relationships so quickly and without boundaries. So my own addiction going further, what was the reason for going into the field of addiction or group? Well, there was a time when I started drinking again in 2006 that I didn't want to work with alcoholics or addicts because that means I'd have to be sober. So I wanted to work in mental health because most people in mental health didn't really care if you drank or not. Professionally, outside the realms of your work environment, don't be impaired. That's the message. So if my ego could be validated by accomplishing such what accolades I might have, then I can still do what I used to do, which was drink, and then still produce, which was work in mental health, still try to integrate some comedy in that, and I'm going to be able to pull off my same pursuits that I had when I was younger, which was still just trying to get attention. When I was doing stand-up, I really wanted you to laugh at me just so I could feel appreciated and all that jazz. So my material, while it might be funny or silly, it was really for a reaction. It really didn't have a lot of meaning and value. And now when I engage with the groups, then I have a message. I have a message. And if you don't have a message, then you're just out there just being a clown. So what was, and I'm ADD. I'm sorry. It's all I got on the topic
this
about
is all
what,
good.
What was the turning point?
We're getting there. You're good.
Well, as a licensed professional, there was a time where I got to the point where suicide was a thought. And after having gone through it, I no longer wanted to drink. My initial reaction was just to take myself out, which was the way I drank.
Yeah.
And so there became a time where, well, maybe I need to consider taking the recovery program more seriously if I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And that's when I had to make my change. And I was actually a year sober.
Wow. Come on, man.
I was actually a year sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was in 2011.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy, man. I identify with that in a way because honestly, my first time in my life dealing with suicidal ideations and actually somewhat attempting was in recovery within my first year.
Well, you think about that. You're grieving the loss of the relationship with your drug, substance, alcohol, whatever it is, and now you have loneliness. Well, who am I connecting with?
That's good.
If alcohol and drugs was what allowed me to connect with others, I don't know how. I didn't know how to have relationships. So I'm hearing the same thing because it was, it was my third time of residential treatment, if you will, and then I struggled with being able to connect with others, and so. I'm grieving the loss of my addiction. In addition to how do I connect? What else might I grieve from? And you were talking about grieving.
Bruh, and if we can go a little deep, and just a question, man, did you ever feel like, well, let me ask, are you the only child or you had siblings?
No, I'm a terrible older brother. Had two younger sisters, man. I just rampaged the house.
I got you.
I'm the kid that would tell the youngest sister, be careful of the monster underneath the bed, and I would hide under that bed while my mom would read her stories and wait till Mama left and she tried to go to sleep, and then I would have like these monster claws, like, like that. So I'm sorry. Keep me out of the house. I was like, oh yeah, I was, and my sister, she went to TCU, became a registered dietitian, and then sought being a nun. A Franciscan nun with the sisterhood in North Texas, and I used to make jokes that I caused that.
Right.
It's like, well, she decided to go this way. But yes, I was the older brother that terrorized his sisters.
I understand. Because you have siblings, and would you consider, and correct me if I'm wrong, did you ever kind of own that label, black sheep?
Well. Did I own it? No. I had another younger sister that I would project that onto her. I would say that her friends were worse than mine. And so by doing so, that made me better than she.
Okay.
And then, of course, what accomplishments am I seeking in life versus what she's doing? And we didn't have a close relationship probably until I think after I moved out to California, and then we started visiting a little bit. Since we're getting deep, men struggle with approval from their fathers. Typically, and women will seek a relationship with their moms or be daddy's little girl. It depends. My sister called me while I was in California, and my father and mom had apparently done some counseling. And she found a shoebox. And in the shoebox, she found a letter that my dad had written where he said at the time where he was developing the airbag, his career was on fire. Imagine being 27 years old, 28 years old, and you're doing all of this. You're a physician in the Air Force. You're also an engineer developing something that's going to change the world. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And so as a new husband, a new father, he resented his son being born because it was stressful. But what did I hear? Hey, I found this letter that Dad wrote that he resented you being born. Well, what did it do for me? That gave me licensure. It gave me permission to be the most self-pity. Ooh, I knew it. I knew it. I knew that man didn't like me. I knew it. And so when people say, how you and your dad? Man, he never liked me being born, man. My dad, he didn't care. So I just played that pity card. And that's so farthest from the truth, man. But that's what the ego does. It wants to find something it can hold on to. And okay, in recovery they talk about resentment as the number one offender. Okay. I can talk about this a little bit more, but self-pity. Self-pity, let me give you the definition of self-pity. Self-pity is a resentment. And just like an attorney, I'm going to build a case. Just like I did with that Sarah. Let me tell everybody, hey, let me tell you something. My dad resents me, man. You know that? My dad resents me. And then I'm going to tell you, hey, you know my dad resents me. My dad resents me. Isn't that terrible? Can you believe he said that? The nerve of that man. And so I'm going to build my case so that everybody can hear my story. And once the jury has condemned my father, then I have won. And the deal is, I'm still wearing this mask of pain, which is a facade from a belief system that wasn't correct to begin with, amazingly distorted. Isn't that just, are we beating it poetry here?
Yeah, that was a bar, dog. That was
I just like, wow. So when I work with other clients, by my own testimony, I can see what's going on with theirs. I won't spill that story right away unless it's necessary, but it's for. And the thing is, a lot of counselors, they want to tell them the answer. I like a person to identify it themselves. When you identify it and you recognize it, it has emotional value.
Yes,
it
sir.
has weight. And the light bulb goes off, it's a lot brighter, and it really sheds light on everything. If I tell it to you or somebody else, well, your parents tell you that, it goes in one ear and out the other. So we just... man, my ADD just kicked in.
You good, bruh. And so all this is great, bruh. And so I kind of want to pivot a little bit. And so still in that area and going somewhere else. And so it brings me, of course, we were just kind of talking before, we even started recording. And, I was telling you about, I lost my father. Watched him, pretty much die on Christmas Day, 2012, right? And so,
I'm sorry, by the way.
Yeah, hey man, it was, and I don't want to get too deep, but the thing was, I knew this was happening before it happened, and just on some other levels. But from a dream standpoint, we have dreams. I think all of us can relate to having dreams, and I had a dream that this happened before it happened. Right? It's crazy stuff, and so, but of course, I was left with things on the inside, you know what I'm saying? Main thing was grief, though, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was something that I never really had to really face in my life. I've lost people, lost family members, cousins, friends, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But losing a parent, you know what I'm saying, it hit different, And so because it was during the holidays and on Christmas Day, being a person in recovery, for one, it definitely gave me a new challenge in my recovery, you know what I'm saying, having to fight grief during the holidays and the time that I'm seemingly supposed to be happy, whatever. But, it's like I'm fighting, you know what I'm saying? And every time these holiday seasons come back around, it can be the weather, it can be certain things that trigger those emotions. And now I'm having to learn how to cope with these things. And so I'm saying pivoting because, I want to talk a little bit about people who are in, addiction or substance use or recovery, however you want to put it, and grieving or coping, if you whatever, however you want to say, during the holiday season. And so talk to us a little bit about that, man, because I know you may have some personal experience, but definitely from a clinical standpoint, working with other clients and probably hearing this from other clients based on the holiday season. How do we deal with, as we would say, holiday triggers? You know what I'm saying? Like talk to us about that.
I will. I just want to say, I want to share my appreciation of you being vulnerable and transparent with your own. This is part of us. When I go through grief, I have to express myself, because if I don't, I hold a pain inside of me that grows further, and it actually separates me, it disconnects me from being able to connect with others. And so it's important that I share that with you, because being able to share that takes courage, and it's still painful. So thank you. This grief that we have during the holiday season, so alcoholics and addicts really don't need a reason to drink or do drugs. However, during the season, there's a very strong emotional tide wave that occurs because there's so much going on in society. First of all, you have it on every form of media, television, radio, all the movies that you ever see. What are our memories of childhood? most people are just there's an attachment with our childhood. Maybe I had this warm fuzzy, make believe where Santa was brought everything in and that was it, and so they missed that being coddled, and that maybe that's an experience that they have. But man, not everybody has that. It might have been a really tough childhood. That's not that wonderful a moment. And I'm grieving what? I'm grieving my wish that I had a family. I'm grieving that I did have a family. And then with what I have in today's society, this tidal wave of all these movies, and forgive me for bashing Hallmark, these happy ending, wow, this lovey-dovey, and people who, like, if they're in self-pity or if they're feeling lonely at that time, they see other people looking happy and the happy endings, and they compare themselves to it. And so suddenly, wow, look what they have and I don't.
Yeah.
What's not being realized is what they're seeing is a product of some investment in work. So a family has to be successful. If they're happy, they have to engage. Relationships take work. Recovery takes work.
Yeah.
I just stopped doing alcohol and drugs, and suddenly the world is rainbows and unicorns and butterflies.
Yes, sir.
There's an engagement, a process that's there. So what the alcoholic and addict wants, I want what I want and I want it now. They want immediate gratification. They see what other people may have, and this can be a catalyst to more pain because they have still the suffering that you acknowledged, but they haven't worked on it.
Yeah.
So during that season, there's so much stimuli coming in from so many different directions. It's overwhelming. And then the attachment from childhood or other, you're fighting a grieving process. Now that's part of it, part of a grieving process. And what am I willing to do? Now grieving has those, if you look at the stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Well, acceptance we're going to just take off the table because we know that's not happening during that time.
Yeah.
We could be in denial of so many things, but I like to live in depression. People who are clinically depressed, I wouldn't say that because that can be medically and with a chemical issue. People who live in depression, though, they live in the past. They live in the past with those attachments of those, instead of engaging and changing their perception of reality by engaging in relationships. So the depression is because they're still stuck on that attachment. And so if you're looking at the seasons, what attachment are they still clinging on to?
Would you merge something like that with the topic of PTSD?
Oh, 100%.
All right.
Well, let me throw this out there too. So in Recovery, by the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, they say that the resentment is the number one offender. Resentment is the number one offender. Now, if you look at Philip Flores, that's the gentleman's name I was trying to remember last time we spoke. Philip Flores,
okay.
He wrote a book called Addiction as an Attachment Disorder. And so in his clinical research, he states that poor stress management and a lack of gratitude is what sends people back to relapse every time. So let's look at stress. What is PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder. And so what are the traumas? Well, we all have some kind of trauma. Some are worse than others, but still, if you have trauma, it's your trauma.
Yeah.
No, and I tell clients that nobody's is worse, but we'll tell ourselves, mine's worse than yours.
Right.
Well, the thing is, though, there's two traumas we have. And Mary Bellafato, who used to be a clinical director of Pine Grove and now works with psychodrama, her method was we all have two traumas: fear of abandonment and fear of not being good enough. And these messages are developed, these roles we take on when we're like the age of 5, and we get it from our parents. And it's not to blame or point fingers, it's just what we learned.
Yeah.
How come I feel like I'm not good enough? What occurred in my childhood that I told myself that I'm not good enough? Well, something happened at school, something happened at home, and this. And what about fear of abandonment? Well, I have an attachment that I want with my mom. I want some approval from mom or dad. And what is that? So I get these messages. And what is fear of abandonment? Well, it's fear of rejection. And what do I define as rejection? Just based on comments that somebody may give me. Yeah. And so it's ongoing. So these mini traumas, if you want to call them, they're traumas for us or anybody. And so what stresses me out? I'm not here. I just heard the phone go off. So it's like if these traumas occur, I get stressed out. But what are the coping skills to handle stress? What are the coping? Well, most of us, when we go into stress, we're going to go into the resentment and the self-pity again. And that's why we build gratitude. And if I'm feeling in gratitude, what is really gratitude? Gratitude, wow. Am I being grateful for not just today? I'm being grateful for maybe I'm this or that. Where's the gratitude in having myself? Where's the gratitude in what part of me can I be grateful for?
Yeah.
I say that because working with others, most of us say, okay, I'm grateful that I have a house. I'm grateful I have a place to live. And this is good stuff.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, I say, how much value do you have for yourself? Because I say, well, I don't think I like the way I look. I don't think I like how much money I make. My relationships, I'm not good enough. See, I'm still part of that area. And the reason I bring this up is the gift of gratitude is self-worth. The gift of gratitude is self-worth. And I have to overcome something called the fear of not being, or the fear of greatness. The fear of greatness. But see, our perception of greatness is me standing on top of the hill, me having thousands of dollars, me driving a Lexus, I don't know, whatever kind of car you have, a Porsche, I don't know. But the point being is why can't I be just great where I am? So if I'm learning recovery, I'm in the first year, I'm not using drugs. I'm building relationships. I am starting to see that I am a worthwhile human being. Why can't I be great right now? Well, we have those traumas. I'm not good enough, fear of abandonment.
Yeah.
And so that can stress somebody out.
That's good.
So we start looking at gratitude and start embracing the goodness that we each possess. And a lot of times we still have those negative messages that I have developed at some point in time, like me holding on that message, my dad rejected me. My dad did not resent me.
Yeah.
And so
Understand.
my point being is we have to change those messages so that we can create and recreate who we want to be.
Wow.
So the stress that comes from so many different things is overcoming that by relationships. And it's so important. That's why I love group psychotherapy.
Yeah.
The outcome, the positive outcome, comes from a group. Any 12-step, any program of that nature all has a group. How come? Because that's where we build a support system. Individual therapy, believe it or not, statistics are not as high with an outcome as with group.
Understand. I wish we had time to just keep diving deeper, but we do have to land this plane. But I do want to go out giving some piece of advice, right, or a suggestion, or however you want to word that. And so when it comes to a person who's watching this now, who's in recovery, or who may be in active addiction, it could be either or. And this is a time of the year that is not, like you say, it's not a hallmark for them, right? And they are trying to cope, with some form of grief, stress, whatever it may be. What is one or maybe a couple pieces of advice or suggestions that you can tell that person right now on how to get through this season?
Asking for help is the most challenging thing any of us really have. So I can't stress the importance of, if you struggle with it, to ask somebody for help. If you know somebody else, to say, hey, look, let them know, reinforce that I'm here. And if it's me that you struggle to ask for help from, please ask somebody. Asking for help, because that's really the barrier to success.
Yeah.
Too many people, I want to do it on my own. I'm a burden to somebody else, but you're not a burden. You're not a burden. People want to help. We do.
Yeah.
So ask for help. That's the number one. Yeah. Really.
That's good. I love it. No, that's it. So look, I almost, can I be honest? I almost want to cry right now. I really do. This is a very heartfelt episode. But I ain't gonna do it right now. I ain't gonna do it. What that was? Do it for the. I ain't gonna do it. Anyways, all right, I got off. So anyways, look, thank y'all for stepping into the area, man. Look, for one, we want to thank Mr. Greg Grill, man. You have been awesome, man. Let's dap it up.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So look, y'all stay tuned, man. This is gonna run from the time that we release this, which will probably Monday, whatever the date is on Monday, I don't know. But anyways, it's going to run through the end of the month. And we will see y'all in 2022. That's what it's going to be. Happy New Year. Peace out.